Welcome, welcome, and thank you all for joining us today. We're excited to be celebrating our golden 50th anniversary season. Yay, woo! And with that, we have liftoff. Whether this is your first time joining us or you're a longtime supporter, we welcome you to the place to be challenged by leading speakers and to advance important ideas collectively. I'm Lisa Harris, CEO of Eskenazi Health, and I'm honored to serve as president of the Economic Club of Indiana this season. Before I introduce our guests at the president's table, I want to send a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, One America Financial, and to our platinum sponsors, all represented behind me. You can see that many of these organizations have supported us for 15 or 20 years or more. Also, a special thank you to IBJ Media for their support as a media partner as we commemorate this milestone year. Last year, our conversations often became trending topics online, so let's keep that momentum going by expanding today's conversation through social media. So if you haven't already, please take out your cell phones, post, tweet, or like us so that your friends will know that you're involved with the lively conversations at the Economic Club of Indiana. The Economic Club Twitter handle is @EconomicClubIn. Tweet using the hashtag EconLunch. You can also find us on Facebook at the Economic Club of Indiana. And as you likely already know from our event pre-event email, we offer a special parking rate thanks to our friends at Denison Parking. So if you parked in the Plaza Park garage, please be sure to pick up a QR code after lunch to pay a special event parking rate of a flat $12 for today. That's the normal price of 1 hour of parking, so thank you, Denison, for that. So now let's present our president's table. Would each of you please stand when I introduce you? As I mentioned, we're pleased to have One America Financial as our presenting sponsor for the season. Joining us today from One America Financial is Jeff Pellin, who serves as VP General Auditor. Welcome, Jeff. And again, another big round of applause to thank One America Financial for their generous support. Next, we have John Mead, an attorney at Clark Quinn. John is past secretary, chief operating officer of the Economic Club of Indiana, and a current board member serving as the program committee chair who led the committee in putting together this extraordinary season. Let's have a round of applause for their great work. And next to John is Deborah Daniels, who's joining us today. Daniels retired from Krieg DeVault LLP after practicing a collective 24 years with the firm. Deborah is a member of the Economic Club Board and serves as the sponsorship committee chair. Then we have our featured speaker, Indiana Supreme Court Chief Justice Loretta Rush. We'll have more. We'll have a bit more to say about Chief Justice Rush after our lunch. Finally, there is one special guest joining us today who I want to take a little bit more time to recognize. As we continue to celebrate this milestone season, we want to acknowledge those who have made a significant impact in helping make the Economic Club of Indiana what it is today. As many of you may already know, 3 Penrod members were initially credited with being the driving force that led to the formal organization of the Economic Club on September 16, 1974. They were David S. Orr, then an Indiana Bell executive, John Medvedskis, an investment broker, and Theodore R. Bohm, an attorney and now retired judge on the Indiana Supreme Court. It's my honor today to recognize one of those founders, Ted Bohm. Except for his time studying at Brown University and at Harvard, Boehm has been a lifelong Indianapolis resident with a significant impact on our community, both professionally and philanthropically. With an eye on other cities that offered a forum where the intellectually curious could be stimulated by some of the foremost thought leaders on the contemporary lecture circuit, Boehm and others rolled up their sleeves and set to work to make that happen in Indy. Boehm has served in multiple roles throughout his time with the Economic Club of Indiana, including as a program committee chair. And today, Ted is still engaged as an active advisory committee member of the board. From its founding, Ted and the other founding members adopted a modest mission statement to promote an interest in and enlighten its membership on important governmental, economic, and social issues. In addition, they focused very intentionally on the Economic Club of Indiana being open to all. And that continues today as a defining and guiding principle. However, the Economic Club is just one example of the impact that Ted Boehm has had on this community over the years. He's been a trailblazer in making Indianapolis a destination for large-scale and high economic impact events, including serving as chairman and CEO of the organizing committee for the 1987 Pan American Games in Indianapolis, and he was the first president and CEO of Indiana Sports Corporation. And this is just a sampling of his extensive contribution. Please join me in a big round of applause to show our gratitude and appreciation to Ted for all that he has done. Again, thank you, Ted. And of course, it's all of you in this room, our sponsors, our members, our community as a whole, who have allowed the Economic Club to deliver on its mission for 50 years. Please join me in one more round of applause for all of today's President Table guests. And finally, just a bit of housekeeping. As usual, you will find white cards on your table. If you have a question for our speaker today, you can fill out one of these cards, raise it up during the program, and our event team will collect your questions. As a reminder, you may also tweet your questions to @EconomicClubIn, and we encourage you to continue to tweet about today's luncheon. So now please enjoy your lunch and your conversation, and we'll be back shortly to begin the program. I'm back. Did you all enjoy your lunch? Yeah, we got the chocolate buzz going here. I think we're all going to be kind of riding high this afternoon. So now it is my great honor to introduce today's guest, Indiana Supreme Court Chief Justice Loretta H. Rush. Loretta Rush took the oath of office as Indiana's 108th Supreme Court Justice in November 2012, having been appointed by Governor Mitch Daniels. She was retained by voters in 2014. The Judicial Nominating Commission named her Indiana's first female Chief Justice in August 2014, and she was reappointed in 2019 and 2024. Prior to her appointment to the Indiana Supreme Court, Rush spent 15 years at a Lafayette law firm and was elected 3 times to serve as Tippecanoe Superior Court 3 judge. Chief Justice Rush is the immediate past president of the Conference of Chief Justices and a member of the National Center for State Courts Board of Directors. She also served as co-chair of the National Judicial Opioid Task Force and as an executive committee member on the National Judicial Task Force to examine state courts' response to mental illness. In 2019, she was appointed by Chief Justice John Roberts to the Judicial Conference Committee on Federal State Jurisdiction and continues to serve in that role. And Chief Justice Rush was recently elected as a member of the American Law Institute. Chief Justice Rush is a member of local, state, and national bar associations, including serving as a Life Fellow of the American Bar Foundation, and an Academy of Law Alumni Fellow for the Maurer School of Law. She also chairs or is a member of several commissions. In addition to her service on the bench, Chief Justice Rush has been recognized for her broad impact. In 2018, she was named the Indiana Chamber of Commerce Government Leader of the Year. This is just one of many distinguishing awards, both locally and nationally, including the National Association of Women Judges Lady Justice Award in 2023, which is one of their highest honors. Additionally, IBJ Media has included Chief Justice Rush on each of their annual Indiana 250 lists, which include the state's most influential and impactful leaders. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Chief Justice Loretta Rush.
Thank you, Dr. Harris, and really esteemed members of the Economic Club and guests, thanks for having me and for the warm welcome today. I'm honored to be here, and I'm also grateful for my colleagues that are here joining me today, Justice Jeffrey Slaughter, Mark Mass, and Derek Moulter. Gentlemen, could you stand? Thank you for coming. And I see you back there, Chief Justice Shepard, as well, so thank you for coming. I want to add my thanks to the many that are the chorus thanking former Justice Ted Boehm. When I was appointed Chief Justice in 2024, Ted was one of the first people to call me, and I will always remember what you said. Congratulations and condolences. But Ted Boehm's legacy, both on the bench as an attorney and the founder of this club, is just one of remarkable service to our state. He not only contributed mightily through his well-reasoned principled opinions, but he always recognized the vital role each of us must play in fostering strong communities. Thank you, Ted. So today I'm going to talk to you about Indiana's judicial branch, and I like to say we're really sort of the least known branch of government. So I'm going to pull back the curtain today and discuss our judiciary's role as a partner in maintaining a thriving, stable economy. But before proceeding, they asked me to say a little bit about myself. So who is your Chief Justice? Well, Indiana became my forever home 51 years ago. I'm the proud daughter of a railroad man. We moved 16 times. We followed the train tracks from Hoboken, New Jersey to the south side of Chicago. We finally landed in Richmond, Indiana. I graduated from there and then on to Purdue. I went to Purdue thinking engineering was going to be my thing, but I quickly realized it was not going to be my thing. Instead, I was drawn to law. I really was intrigued by how it can be applied to the challenges of our everyday life and the importance of the law to the fabric of our democratic society. But I did marry a Purdue engineer, if that counts, and 4 children, 5 grandchildren later, we're still together. So after graduating from IU Maurer School of Law, I spent 16 years as a civil litigator, and I liked that. I liked advocating for my clients in courtrooms around the state. But I got the opportunity to serve as a juvenile judge, and I have to tell you, serving 3 terms, or I didn't get to finish my last term, but serving as a juvenile judge in Tippecanoe County brought me just great joy. I presided over thousands of cases involving abused, neglected, traumatized, and troubled children. Little did I know then that it was going to be those children who prepared me for the role I have today. Courts are in a unique position to support children and family. Children enter the legal system in a variety of ways. The court system affects every aspect of a child's life, from birth, paternity, guardianship, child support, divorce, adoption, delinquency, child welfare, termination of parental rights, and more. And in these cases, the judges are often the only constant in the child's life. Caseworkers, service providers, or even living situations can change, but your judge remains steady. Under my bench in Tippecanoe County, I had thousands of pictures of the kids. They would give me their picture when they came in, and I would have them on display in my courtroom. And when I moved to the State House, I took those pictures and I decoupaged. One, I like to decoupage, and I like the word decoupage. So I decoupaged them on this. And you know why? Because it's a constant reminder of the importance and our duty to support the most vulnerable among us. I realized that to meet the needs of the children and family that stood before me, judges must step behind the bench and go work within their larger communities and with the other branches of government to improve their lives, because they're standing in front of you every day in some impossible situations. So looking back at 2012, when I applied for a position on the Indiana Supreme Court, I will tell you I loved the juvenile bench. But Indiana was only one of a handful of states in the country that didn't have a woman on its Supreme Court. In fact, when I went to law school, there had never been a woman on the U.S. Supreme Court. That didn't happen until Ronald Reagan fulfilled his promise and appointed the magnificent Sandra Day O'Connor. Her appointment in her 25-year term on the U.S. Supreme Court inspired me. It does to this day. And I have this motto that you have to see the robe to be the robe. So I applied for the vacancy. When I got the call from Governor Daniels, when he informed me of my selection, first I think I damaged his hearing because I gave a big robust cheer when that happened. But I told him I needed a couple of months to make sure all the children's cases in my court were in order. My last day on the juvenile bench was the day before election in 2012, and my 9-year-old asked me if he could serve as a bailiff in my court. I said, sure. So the case I had was a young girl, Michaela. Michaela and her siblings had been in my court many times based on poor parental choices. And when I told Michaela, this was like late that Monday night, I told Michaela this is my last case, I was going to go to Indianapolis, I was going to work at the State House, she started crying. And as much as I tried, I joined her. So then I look over and I stop. My son was crawling under the bench, doing an army crawl, and his hand came up and he was pushing a tissue over to his mom. So less than 2 years later, when the Chief Justice position came open, the four associate justices at the time were interviewed by the Judicial Nominating Commission. And when the commission was deliberating, true to our court's culture, Justice Rucker said, let's all go out for ice cream. So the four of us did. We did. Later that day, I found out I had been named Chief Justice when my clerks blasted "Hail to the Chief" from Chambers, and that brings me to serving all of you today. During my 10-plus years as Chief Justice, I often ask myself, what can courts do to improve the justice system for the 6.8 million Hoosiers who call Indiana home? One answer is ensuring our judiciary serves as an engine of economic development, and that may sound odd, but our courts are a foundational part of Indiana's economic success, and I'm going to explain. 98% of the cases in our country are filed in the state courts. In Indiana, 1.6 million cases are pending in our courts today. And those court cases touch on every aspect of Hoosier life. And I'm just going to give you a sampling. I just picked some of the cases that I pulled off our dashboard before I came over here. And these aren't just about case numbers. These are our neighbors, your employees, your constituents. We had 11,000 fresh starts coming through criminal expungement, 19,000 mental health cases, the largest ever, to ensure those suffering from mental illness receive the help they need, 40,000 new protection orders cases to prevent domestic or workplace violence, 10,000 endangered adults receiving protection in a guardianship case, 18,000 children in need of services being served by a guardian ad litem or a CASA, 14,000 new paternity cases to help children receive support from both parents. We had almost 5,000 adoptions last year to officially bring forever families together. 32,000 domestic violence convictions that are shared with law enforcement to prevent the purchase of firearms by dangerous individuals, and 80,000 small claims cases that allow businesses, neighbors, and others to really peacefully resolve their disputes. Being in court it can be a particularly vulnerable time, personally, emotionally, and economically. The sooner a person can get before a judge and resolve their differences with a creditor, settle disputes with a landlord, obtain child support, expunge a conviction, or be made whole in a lawsuit, the sooner they can get back to their family and back to work. The same is true for businesses. in their legal disputes. Efficient and fair resolution of cases mean that businesses and individuals can move forward and contribute to our state's growth. Our courts are designed to provide a level playing field for all citizens and businesses, ensuring that their disputes are resolved on law and not on influence. This impartiality fosters an environment where entrepreneurs can innovate and grow without fear of arbitrary decision-making. And when businesses know they're operating in a state with a fair and predictable legal system, you know what? They're more likely to invest and grow here. So I'm going to peel back sort of the curtain of the judiciary a little more and just outline 3 specific ways I think Indiana courts contribute to improving our economy. First, enhancing public safety. Second, supporting children and families. And third, increasing efficiency and accessibility through innovation. Public safety. Our judiciary plays a crucial role in public safety, which is essential to economic development. Public safety fosters a stable environment where business and communities can grow. In Indiana, your judiciary has invented systems to protect our citizens, and I'm just going to give you a few. You can go online and look at Insight or go to Indiana Courts or Indiana Supreme Court, and you'll see the different applications. We've developed a protective order registry, which instantly shares judicial orders with law enforcement across the state, helping prevent domestic and workforce violence. In Indiana, we have had over 1 million protective orders filed. We also created and developed a system that resulted in 90,000 people being placed on a list that Indiana pharmacies get every night to check before somebody can buy a meth precursor. We've recently creating, and we're just started implementing, we've started in 5 counties going through the state, a comprehensive jail management system that ensures accurate criminal records, allowing judges to view real-time incarceration status and alerting community agencies and victims when a supervised individual is released. Our problem-solving courts are just a wonderful story in Indiana. That's a key example of how we enhance public safety while offering individuals a path to rehabilitation. These they're specialty courts. They address drug addiction, mental health, domestic violence, and are tailored to address the unique needs of offenders instead of them simply sitting untreated. In the past decade, we've tripled the number of these courts, and now they total in Indiana over 160. We have grown them faster based on the work of our trial court judges than any other state in the country. We have 32 veterans courts, and you know what? These courts work. Our judges get out from behind the bench, can be in community partners, and connect those standing before them in desperate need of a new path. And by forging that new path, our courts offer justice tempered with mercy, which is grounded in the principles of reformation set forth in the Indiana Constitution. Many people on our problem-solving courts have been affected by the drug and opioid crisis, just a national public safety concern. In working nationally on the judicial task force, I received a lot of help by Indiana's Dr. Jerome Adams during his time as the Surgeon General. He really helped educate me to what are the levers we can pull, and what do we know about substance abuse? Well, we know this, and I did not know this before. You know what the #1 referral source other than self to get people to treatment is? The justice system. What do judges not know a lot about? How to take care of best practices on dealing with people with substance use and mental health. So we looked at what are the levers we can pull. We do know that those involved with substance use disorder are 13 times more likely to be involved in the criminal justice system. That's a safety issue. And then also that the justice system, we need to treat substance abuse disorders, punish the crime, but look at the substance abuse as a chronic treatable brain disease instead of a moral failure. So as a result, in Indiana, we trained all our judges. Wonderful partnerships with different doctors that came in and trained on mental health, what works, what doesn't work, best practices. And the judges, we hired a behavioral health specialist embedded in the Indiana Supreme Court Administrative Office, which is there to help train and provide services to judges throughout the state. By helping people recover, we've reduced recidivism and allow these individuals to return to their families and workforce. As a former juvenile court judge, supporting children and families remains close to my heart. These courts are often a safety net for vulnerable children, many of them coming from very challenging circumstances. In Indiana, a third of Indiana's children live in a single-parent household. More than 50,000 are being raised by a grandparent, and over 100,000 of them have an incarcerated parent or guardian. So one way we've tackled those issues is through the Commission on Improving the Status of Women. I see Julie Whitman out there, who was our first director. Thank you, Julie. It was a cross-branch effort which brought experts from all three branches and others around the state to study issues concerning vulnerable youth and recommend solution. And again, the Children's Commission is just one example of the CASA program is under the court. We have programs dealing with youthful offenders. Chris Blessinger's here from DOC. She's worked very hard in a lot of our partnerships on that. We've created a child abuse registry. The legislature every year asks us for something technological, and they asked us we would do something. So before you would hire a teacher or a caregiver for a child, we would know if they had a child abuse offense. So we can link that technology. For our veterans courts, we worked with the VA. We have a large number of veterans in Indiana, and we have some of them come back, and they're struggling with regard to adapting to back here, and we see them in our court system. So now if somebody we link up our information with the VA, and we're able to go meet with that veteran and say, can we get you in a veterans court? And our goal was to make a veterans court. We don't have one in every county, but we wanted to make a veterans court available to any veteran that was eligible throughout the state. And the work that we've done with the VA, and if you want to attend a veterans court graduation, I will make that happen for you. It is something. Because the veterans that are going through the recovery, they walk with a peer. So at graduation, they are there together. It's the most redemptive thing. Our entire court has gone. We participate in those. They're successful, they're working, and they're growing in Indiana. And again, these are just a few of the efforts designed to improve outcomes, because when somebody graduates from Veterans Court, it's never just about them. It's about their kids, their family. They reconnect with that, and it's just, you see them working, you see them staying in their communities, contributing, buying homes, starting businesses. It's been really wonderful. I used to really like doing adoptions when I was a trial court judge, because it was such a moment that now I think problem-solving courts and veterans court, John Cleary, who's a judge in Dearborn County, says, if there's a problem-solving court in heaven, I hope it's a veterans court. And I got to say, I agree with Judge Cleary there. So many of it, when we talk about training our judges on mental health and substance abuse, we've had just a real energetic response to this. We invited every county to come and bring a team to 2 different summits, one on mental health, one on substance abuse. Bring your prosecutor, public defender. We had mayors come, school superintendents, and these teams from every county trained on how to deal with people at every sort of pinch point in their community, and then took that back. The governor was involved, Speaker Houston, President Pro Tem Bray, the fantastic late Senator Sandlin, and we came together and said, we really want to work with this in the community. We did the same thing with mental health. All 92 counties showed up with a team. So in focusing how we can better address mental health challenges in our courts and communities, we know that leads to stronger families, lead to stronger communities, and stronger communities to a healthy environment. So the third thing I'm going to talk about was just increasing efficiency and accessibility through innovation. The economy is strengthened when courts are efficient and accessible, predictable, efficient, and accessible. Delays in legal process are costly, not just in time, but also in opportunities for business and individuals. One of the things our court did about 10 years ago, we invited general counsel from businesses all over the state. We brought them to the Supreme Court room. What is working? What is not working? And they said it takes too long and it's too expensive. Fair enough. So we sort of took that, and we came up with the commercial court program that is led by Derek Moulter today. The commercial courts have been successful. We have them in 10 areas, but they're available to any business statewide. And those courts specialize in complex business disputes, ensuring the cases are handled quickly, predictably. From their inception, 2,500 cases have been filed. These cases are decided in weeks. not months and years. And we have a searchable database. So even at the trial level, if you want to see what's happening in the commercial case, you've got this kind of company, you're able to search that. And what's really remarkable is that Hoosier businesses now are negotiating valuable deal points in their contracts. Things like price, quantity, quality, delivery times. They see value in agreeing to any dispute must be resolved in the commercial court. So again, this expedites resolution, but also enforces Indiana's reputation as a business-friendly state. I am good friends with the Chief Justice in Delaware, and when you're in law school, they're always talking about Delaware being a great state for business. So I always tell CJ Seitz, he is a CJ, but his name is CJ Seitz. CJ, we're coming after you. Indiana's coming after you with regard to how we deal with our business cases. A couple other things on looking at innovation is, raise your hand if you know about My Case. Okay, good. 54 million people, and this has happened in the last 10 years, that we have a unified case management system. Last year, 54 million people accessed My Case. I mean, you can go on My Case and look up cases. You can pay fines, you can see court matters, or you can be a nosy mom like I was and found out one of my kids had a speeding ticket he didn't tell me about. For those of you that know my kids, it was Jake. So in looking at that, in going paperless and sending text messages to litigants so you don't have default judgments where they end up in jail, the sky's the limit. We're doing a mental health pilot program project in Marion County to expedite mental health appeals, which can take a long time, which may be longer than the 90 days they're done. We are using AI to do the transcription to get the case coming. We travel the state every other year, all the justices and I, we travel the state and we meet with all our judges and we sort of have a pass the mic with the judges. What are the issues that you're concerned about and what can we do to help you here? And they talk about interpreters. They can't get interpreters. Particularly some languages in some rural communities are seeing a real need for Haitian Creole, Burmese. I'm looking forward to us looking ahead and harnessing AI for access to justice issues and not fearing it, but making it work in a ethical, predictable, helpful manner. So we have a lot of work that we're doing on that right now. So these are just a couple of examples of how our courts are sort of innovating to increase efficiency and accessibility. We allow cameras in the courtroom now. That was a long time coming. 60% of the requests were done. We did a survey of media, judges, and litigants. About 85% of people were happy with that. Again, it's peeling back that curtain for people to understand the judiciary is there to work for them. We provide online access to many court calendars, live stream court hearings. We're committed to navigating new technological things to make sure that that promise of what can we do on these millions of cases, millions of people that come before us, how can we do it better? And we're very much committed. I had the privilege a year ago of representing the United States, so I was able to travel the country and the nation and look at other judicial systems. And I will tell you there's issues. There's issues with regard to not having fair, predictable, reliable ones that people, individuals, and business can depend on. We had anti-corruption courts, because there's anti-corruption courts watching the courts. We had courts where there are 10-year delays. I met the president of DuPont, and they said they used to outsource all their business, but then they couldn't get their contracts enforced in other countries, so they brought that back. So I am very happy to be back home again in Indiana with our judiciary, with working with the other branches of governments, because I think it's so important. So I hope this highlight reel shows you that Indiana's judiciary really is more than just a system of courts. It's really a foundational element of our economic health. By ensuring fairness, efficiency, actively supporting public safety, children, families, and innovation, we're really dedicated to continuing to do better and to be an environment where businesses and individuals can thrive. Thank you very much.
I think you'll sit there and I'll sit here. Wow, what a career of contribution.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much for bringing your work alive, the humanity of your work alive for the rest of us. As you reflected on the role of the judiciary in public safety, I was reminded of a piece that Julie Conrad, our chief counsel, forwarded me, and this was from the state court report of an interview that you did, it was some time ago, where you commented on the need for the judiciary to start fixing the things that bring people down. And you further made reference to state courts as having become something of, I love this, governmental emergency rooms for society's afflictions. And I will say that given our commitment at Eskenazi Health to the vulnerable members of our community, those comments really struck us as we reflected on how those we serve are so often the beneficiaries, enabled by our medical legal partnership, of that mindset and of your commitment. So thank you for that. And thank you for sharing with us your whole career trajectory. Have you had shifts in your view of the role of the judiciary from the time you first became an attorney to now serving as Chief Justice?
I have. I think we used to think of the judiciary as sort of this ivory tower, right? The judge is going to be presiding over you and just deciding the case, and then you're going to go out the door. And what I have found was that when you see these people and you see the trauma, and we're not trying to fix them, we're trying to do well when we have them. What are the levers we can pull in sentencing orders and dispositional orders? What can we do if you've got a public safety? I used to have truancy court. I used to have truancy court at 7:30 in the morning. Why? Because I didn't want kids to miss school, because they weren't going to school. You only had to get up a couple times to come to Judge Rush's truancy court to you and your parents, and then you started going to school. So I think the idea of dealing with the issues, like understanding, with opioids, what is Vivitrol, what is methadone, Suboxone, what are the best practices for treating. Mm-hmm. We just have to train our judges and make them smarter. And on the business disputes, we're training our judges on sophisticated, complex business disputes that are tying companies in a knot to get them moving so that they can do it. So it's a lot of judicial training, but we're very respectful of staying within our lane. I mean, we're dealing with the cases, we're doing that before us, but sometimes partnering on mental health initiatives, substance abuse initiatives, it really leads to some great results.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I've got a number of questions related to, I haven't got through all these yet, but one comes to, we have an election coming up, news flash, you may not have checked your phones in the last few minutes, so, but retention.
Right.
The retention vote is on this year's ballot, and there is some expressed opposition to retention. Can you tell us a little
Sure.
bit about that?
Yeah. Thank you for asking the questions.
Yeah.
Justice Moulter, Justice Mass, and I are all up for retention this year, and there is an organized campaign against not retaining the court. And above the fact that the three of us really like our jobs, it's an institutional issue. It's a single issue. They're mad at a single opinion of the case, on a case. And it's really important for us to understand that we are arbiters of the law, not sort of enforcers of some of the societal issues. I have many cases that I really believe X, Y, and Z, but that's not where the law takes you. So what I have respected, and one of the reasons that I have looked at the Ted Bohms and the Randy Shepherds and the Frank Sullivans and the Dick Givens is we have a stable judiciary here that's based on, you may not like all our opinions, but it's based on our role in the government. So I mean, separation of powers means something, and you will always get a reasoned opinion from the Indiana Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals. And you've got so much accountability in our system. You've got 3 levels of appeal, you have transcripts. So I think it's dangerous for us, when I look at other judicial systems, are we going to politicize Indiana's judiciary? And on issues that the legislative branch is struggling with, they are your elected officials with regard to those. And if we decide we're going to politicize the judiciary, the idea of having public trust, and again, that's our currency. You look at the Federalist Papers, it talks about the executive branch has the power of the purse, has the power of the police, and the legislative branch has the power of the purse. Believe me, I know that. I'm always trying to get some from that purse. As a judicial branch, we have the power of public trust. So if you think it depends on who, I've stood with litigants outside courtrooms. Is it who you know? Is it this? Is it that? Is the judge having a good day? Or what did they think this? Or are they pro this? Are they that? Were they appointed by a Republican? We are going to be in the mire in Indiana. And I've seen states that politicize their judiciary, and it doesn't bode well. You think about the 1.6 million cases pending, the types of issues you have. You're not going to be happy with all our opinions. I'm not happy with all our opinions. But we take an oath to follow the law where it takes us. And I'm so proud to work for a court that believes that, and lives the oath that we have. So I'm sad this is happening because I think it just further erodes trust in the court. But if it's this issue today, it's going to be this issue tomorrow. And we will be not in a good way, because our job is to resolve disputes, right? And if you don't have a neutral, fair, predictable dispute arbiter, then it's chaos. And we've seen it happen. I've seen it happen in other countries, and I frankly have seen it happen in other states. So we're hanging tough. We understand our role. Mark, Derek, and I are spending a lot of time talking about and educating on this, but it is important. So the other thing is, 30 people always go in and vote no, right? I don't like any incumbent, so I'm going to vote no. So when you look at the numbers and you're thinking that can this amount really change the culture of our judiciary, it's concerning. But it's not going to change us.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all the questions. I didn't need to spend any time preparing questions for this, and I've not been able to pay as full attention to what you've been saying as I multitask.
Oh, I just rambled. You're fine.
Trying to do justice, trying to respect all the input here. I think that this might be a good follow-on. If you already addressed this, go quickly over it. But how do you separate your own political stances from your decision-making process? Or is this sometimes impossible to do?
It's hard.
Or your personal, I guess not just political, but personal.
Yeah, it's hard. But we have an Indiana Constitution, and we have a U.S. Constitution. And we stand there, we take an oath that we're going to follow the law. And as hard as it is, sometimes, there's even times we assign an opinion, we're going to write it. Somebody says, I think the law is going to take us there, we're going to write there, and the law doesn't take you there. So knowing that that's our duty, and if, I could, run for a political office. I mean, it could be, if you want to have that with regard to imposing your societal views on things, then you're in the wrong branch of government.
Thank you. Here's one. What can our judicial system do to better serve lower class and immigrant populations who often don't understand or see how to get access to judiciary and get the justice they deserve?
Yeah, and that's, when we talk about interpreters, I went to a conference one time, and everybody in the room was, all the presenters were just speaking Spanish, and it was a room of judges, and we were all like, I mistakenly took French. But then the point was, don't let somebody be in your courtroom and not know what's going on. So we are looking at, you have to have somebody interpret if you're a party to a case. Working with civil legal aid and legal services, Indianapolis Civil Legal Aid Society, with providing resources so that they're able to navigate the legal system. I mean, the standards are all the same. I mean, the statutes are the same with regard to your criminal responsibility. If you find yourself in court, you have a right to a public defender, you have a right to an interpreter. I think educationally, we have indianalegalhelp.org, which was accessed, I can't remember, it's like millions of times, where we try to provide services to individuals that don't have an attorney, but I'm always worried about the civil legal aid needs of those that are not represented. And I think whether you're here as an immigrant or you're here as a citizen, the courts have to take care of, we've got to deal with the person that's before us. And so we've got to make sure you got to hold them accountable. You've got to make sure that you provide them with all the due process rights and everybody else is required to have.
Thank you. As you think back over your career, is there a particular case that stands out from your days as an attorney to now as a judge? A particular case, the most difficult case, one that you just
You know, I've
can't
had
let go of?
thousands, probably tens of thousands of cases in my time, and so sometimes my favorite case is a case I'm working on. We had 2 oral arguments today that just kind of had us tied up. We got to go back and talk about those. Still, we're not done. You know, but there's one that just kind of hit me recently. I was down in Floyd and Scott County really hit with the drug crisis. You'll know that in Austin. So they've done a lot with their problem-solving courts. So the entire court went down there for a celebration of all the mental health providers, the problem-solving courts, the graduates. And a woman came up to me and said, "Hi, I'm Lisa." Well, Lisa was a case that came up to the Indiana Supreme Court a couple years ago. She had drug addiction. She had drug addiction issues, and she made some poor choices. But she was out on bail for like 4 or 5 years, and in that time, she got clean and actually started 3 recovery homes. So by the time there's a new judge that was appointed, by the time she was done, she got a couple decades sentence. Well, the prosecutor thought she should have community correction. You know, everyone was like, "She's doing well. I mean, this is part of this." And so the Indiana Constitution has a provision called 7B, which is this rare thing that if there's an outlier sentence, we can use it and correct it and fix it. So the court used the 7B and said, let's put her on community correction so that she can work and continue. And she came up to me, and she has started like 8 new recovery homes. She's clean, and it was fun because I got to introduce Lisa to the rest of the court to see kind of the product of what that chance or that encounter, that something on that case said, let's keep her out. I mean, so look what she's doing. She's got a construction company, she's doing recovery homes, and she's a huge advocate and a peer recovery specialist down in a very hard-hit part of the state. So that one just came to mind, but there's a lot of good cases.
Positive impact. Thank you. Just reflecting on all you know about the Supreme Court, Indiana Supreme Court decisions over the years, is there one that stands out that if you had the opportunity, you'd change?
Mark, what was your last? No, I'm kidding. Yes, but I'm gonna play a little bit safe. One of the first women lawyers in Lafayette, where I live, it's my hometown now, was Helen Gauger, and she learned how to read because her husband was going blind, and she had a razor-sharp legal mind. So she became a lawyer, so she went up to vote. She showed up to vote in the 1890s, and we didn't have the right to vote, so she challenged it, and she sued all the way up to the Indiana Supreme Court, and we didn't give her that right to vote. We had to wait for the 19th Amendment to come along. We should have done that. It'd been nice for Indiana to have been an innovator on that at that period of time.
All righty.
You had a lot of questions.
There are a lot of questions here. We will be compiling these, and I bet you might hear some of this coming out in future comments that you'll
That'd
make
be
elsewhere.
great.
Yeah. How has your role as Chief Justice influenced your everyday life outside of the job?
Well, it has an impact. I remember talking to Randy Shepard, and I'm going to pick on you, Randy, a little bit. So when I became chief, I said, Randy, you've got to put me in your contacts because I've got to be able to call you. And he goes, I don't know if I know how to do that. And I said, well, give me your phone, and I will show you how. And I'm going to put a star by my name. And he said this. He goes, it's like 60% of your job is reading, researching, and writing opinions, and the other 60% is Chief Justice. And I do a lot of my legal work at home. Before we had electronic filing, and selfishly, I was for, you can't, we have about this many pages to read a week, and about half my body length. You can't even put them in a briefcase. You'd have to take garbage, those grocery bags, and I'd get stuck in the north door when the wind hits. And I remember Luke Kenley came by once, Senator Kenley came by and goes, what are you doing? He said, we have no money for technology. I got to take all these cases home. So I think that there's a lot of hours. You really need to, we've got 19,000 attorneys. You have about 550 judges. Under the Constitution, it defines the role of the Supreme Court and Chief Justice. We're responsible for the admission and discipline of attorneys, for the administration of justice. So you really have to keep your eye on everything and really let the, my colleagues are amazing. Jeffrey Slaughter does the Coalition for Court Access, which is civil legal aid. Right now, Justice Mass is doing juvenile detention alternatives. He's heading that as well as dealing with all the records and what's accessible. Derek Moulter's chairing the Innovation Committee in the commercial courts. So you've got to be able to delegate that to make the kind of systems improvement and changing we're doing. And you also, when I talk about transparency, when I went to law school, I'd never met a judge or lawyer. And so I think I was really scared of our former Chief Justice Shepard for a while until I got to know him, what a nice guy was. But I think you have to make yourself accessible so people see it. I spent a morning 2 weeks ago at Arsenal High School on Constitution Day, and I asked the students there, how many of you trust the judicial branch? Not one of them did. So I feel part of our role in the judiciary, not just as Chief Justice, is we've got to earn this trust. So it's not something, you're not sitting in that ivory tower house that just people come to me. It's like, we got to earn the trust. We want people to say, if you are our arbiter, that we've got to treat people fairly, and we've got to listen to the people that think we don't treat them fairly and find out what we can do better.
Well, that may be one possible answer to this last question, but you may have others. So you've covered a great deal of material. I think things that many may not have really understood when you think about all the things that roll up under in this responsibility. And you're passionate about many things. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing Indiana's judiciary, and how do you think the courts can adapt to address those challenges effectively and efficiently?
I'm going to step back and then answer that. I think people don't trust public institutions. They don't trust government and public institutions. We are part of that, right? So that concerns me when our currency is public trust. I think that's a huge issue. Public trust in the judiciary and the National Center for State Courts, Deb Daniels has been on the board, they do extensive surveys and polling, and we've gone from like 80-some% of people trusting courts down to state courts are trusted about 60%, the U.S. Supreme Court's 50-some%. So you think that the millions of people use the courts. So how do we earn that trust? And like I was just at the state bar meeting, and I always tell every attorney, every clerk, every court reporter, you're that face of justice. When somebody, it's not just the judges, but it's everybody in the judicial system, the judicial partners, treating with people with respect, making sure you're not going to win and not everyone's going to win their case. That's the nature of cases. But there's something called procedural due process, treating people that are in the courtrooms with respect. So you may not like the result, but we've learned that people care as much on how they're treated with regard to making sure their rights were protected as they do what the ultimate result is. So I get pretty fired up on the idea of public trust and the lack of it in government. So we as a court make ourselves accessible. I talk to judges when I say get out in your communities. It's like know your communities because you're the person that's sitting there and judging these. But I think people need to see that we care. And so at the end, so then I started letting the kids play judge at Arsenal. And at the end, I think I got a couple of them to change their mind. And I went to the Shepherd Academy down in Evansville, and I was with former Chief Justice Shepard and wonderful students. Like half of them want to be lawyers. And so I look on the horizon at this new generation. And I met a couple of ladies that are at Franklin now that they're saying about law. I said, yes. We just swore in yesterday. We swore in almost 400 new lawyers. But we have to earn that public trust. But we got to turn this tide on the lack of civil discourse. And the judges are being treated, there's more threats going on against our judges' family, our judges' staff, and we need to not take our eye off righting the ship and earning the trust by staying above the fray. And back to the retention question, we've got to stay above the fray. You've got to depend on your judiciary to not be looking over their shoulders, because without fear or favor, that's what the law should be and mean.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.